In front of you is the famous Terracotta Army, standing guard for over 2,000 years in Shanxi Province, China. More than 8,000 life-size warriors fill these underground chambers, each one nearly 6 feet tall, dressed in armor, and with a face unlike any other, as if an entire army was brought back from the dead. Their silent ranks show the might and discipline of the Qin Empire. But here's the thing, these soldiers are just a small part of what was buried with their emperor. So, who was the man powerful enough to command an army even after death? Let's meet the ruler they served, Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. His family name was Ying, and his given name was Zheng. He was the son of King Zhuangzhang of Qin and Lady Zhao, who lived during China's warring states period. According to the records of the Grand Historian, some historians speculate that Ying Zheng might not have been the king's biological son, but the child of Lu Buwei, a wealthy merchant, and Lady Zhao, a mystery we'll explore in another episode. Ying Zheng's father, Yiren, later became King Zhuangzhang of Qin. When he was young, he was sent to the rival state of Zhao as a hostage. During that era, kings often sent their princes to other states to ensure political trust and maintain fragile alliances. If relations were friendly, these hostages lived in comfort, but if tensions rose, they were mistreated, and during war they might even be executed. Unfortunately, while Yiren was held in Zhao's capital, the two states were often at war. The Qin prince lived in fear and humiliation. A wealthy merchant named Lu Buwei was conducting business in Zhao when he noticed the suffering prince. Seeing a chance to gain political power, Lu Buwei decided to take a bold gamble. He supported Yiren financially and politically, even giving him one of his concubines, who later became known as Lady Zhao. Soon after, she gave birth to a son, Ying Zheng. Later, Lu Buwei used his network of connections to help Yiren return to Qin. There, Yiren ascended the throne and became King Zhuangzhang of Qin. Lu Buwei was rewarded with the powerful position of chancellor. Sadly, Yiren ruled for only 3 years before dying of illness at the age of 35. His 13-year-old son, Ying Zheng, was then crowned as the new king of Qin. After 9 years under regency, the 22-year-old king took full control of the government. He dismissed Lu Buwei from his position and suppressed internal rebellions. Over the next 17 years, he unified the 6 warring states. With China finally united for the first time, King Zheng gave himself a new title, Han Di, meaning emperor. From that moment on, history would remember him as the first emperor of China. After unifying all of China, the first emperor was not satisfied with simply ruling the land. He sought something greater, immortality. He wanted to live forever, to rule from his throne for eternity. According to the records of the Grand Historian, when the first emperor was 40 years old, an alchemist from the state of Qi named Su Fu submitted a petition to the throne. He claimed that far across the eastern sea stood 3 divine mountains, Penglai, Fangjiang, and Jingzhou, said to be home to immortal beings. Su Fu requested ships and 3,000 boys and 3,000 girls to accompany him on a sacred voyage, so that he might find these islands and bring back the secret of eternal life for the emperor. Eager to discover the secret of eternal life, the emperor agreed without hesitation. Su Fu and his fleet set sail and were never seen again. Some believe their ships drifted eastward and reached what is now Japan, where Su Fu and his followers settled. Historical records also state that when he was 47, as his obsession with seeking immortality grew stronger, the first emperor abandoned Zhen, the imperial self-reference used only by emperors, and began calling himself a perfected being. Around this time, the first emperor grew increasingly irritable and withdrew from public life. Ministers could only receive imperial orders outside the palace. After executing the eunuchs who had leaked his whereabouts, he completely severed contact with the outside world. But while seeking immortality, the first emperor also prepared for the afterlife. When he ascended the throne at the age of 13, as was the custom at the time, he ordered the construction of his own tomb, a project considered one of the highest priorities for ancient rulers. After unifying the 6 warring states, he sent captured people from those conquered lands to continue building it. To give you an idea of the scale, the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt took about 100,000 workers nearly 20 years to complete. Ancient Chinese records claim that more than 700,000 laborers worked on the first emperor's tomb for almost 40 years. During its construction, countless workers and prisoners were literally worked to death. The Grand Tomb, this monumental resting place of the first emperor, was finally completed 2 years after his death. His mausoleum was divided into an inner city and an outer city. In total, the entire mausoleum covered around 21.6 square miles, roughly 10,500 football fields. At its center stood a massive artificial hill, the earthen mound that covered the burial chamber, spanning nearly 30 acres and rising to a height of almost 400 feet. Workers built this hill layer by layer using rammed earth. But this was no ordinary soil. It was a carefully mixed blend of lime, sand, yellow earth, and sticky rice, reinforced with iron nails. The entire mound had to be compacted continuously for months or even years. As a result, striking the rammed earth with a chisel would leave only a faint white mark, and even explosives would cause minimal damage, almost as if the mound were made of solid concrete. Builders used molten bronze to cast the outer coffin. The ceiling was inlaid with gems to imitate the night sky, while the floor reproduced the layout of Xianying, the Qin capital. Large quantities of liquid mercury were used to create flowing rivers, lakes, and seas, driven by mechanical systems to circulate endlessly. His coffin was placed above these mercury waters, as if the emperor were sailing through his empire. The tomb also used what ancient texts call jarran oil, said to be oil rendered from mystical mermaids, to fuel eternal lamps. Though these beings have never been verified, scholars believe it was most likely whale oil. The burial chamber was filled with miniature palaces, officials, and countless precious artifacts. From the relics unearthed so far, we can catch only a glimpse of the extraordinary scale of this underground world. With so many exquisite treasures buried underground, it's no surprise that tomb robbers through the ages would be tempted. But in ancient China, tomb robbing wasn't just theft. It was seen as a profound offense against the dead, a violation believed to bring misfortune or even a curse. Because of this, rulers enforced extremely harsh punishments on tomb robbers, often execution. So, was the first emperor's grand tomb ever looted or damaged? According to 2 ancient sources, the Book of Han and the Water Classic Commentary, here are the 3 accounts they preserve. The first account says that 3 years after the first emperor's burial, Xiang Yu, one of the rebel warlords who overthrew the Qin dynasty, entered Xianyang with 300,000 soldiers. He supposedly ordered them to dig into the imperial tomb, remove treasures for 30 days without finishing, and in the end set the entire tomb ablaze. The second version, with no date given, describes a group of tomb robbers from the Guangdong region who broke into the tomb, damaged its structure, and carried away copper artifacts. The third tale tells of a shepherd searching for a lost sheep that had wandered into a tunnel near the tomb. By accident, he started a fire that spread through the chamber and burned for 90 days before finally dying out. In 1974, when archaeologists uncovered the Terracotta army, they found clear signs of fire damage in the pits, physical evidence that seems to support at least part of these ancient accounts. In recent years, scientific studies have detected traces of mercury vapor rising from beneath the burial mound, a finding that aligns with ancient records describing rivers of liquid mercury flowing inside the tomb. Researchers concluded that the mercury remained sealed underground, showing no signs of large-scale leakage to the surface. If it had been looted, the mercury would have leaked out and dispersed to the surrounding soil. Yet this finding seems to contradict the old records that describe the tomb being burned and plundered. So how can we explain the difference? Archaeologists believe that historical accounts of tomb damage probably refer to incidents that happened within the outer burial pits, not the main chamber itself. And here's another mystery. After more than 2,000 years, how has such a legendary tomb escaped serious looting?
Ancient texts may hold some clues. When the first emperor was buried, his successor, the second emperor of Qin, ordered the outer gate sealed after the inner passage was closed, trapping all the workers who had built the tomb inside.
They were buried alive as part of the emperor's funeral rites. The workers who remained outside were not spared either. They were executed to keep the tomb's secrets. Archaeologists have discovered large numbers of human bones on the western side of the complex, confirming these ancient accounts. With so many workers killed to protect the tomb's secrets, very few people ever knew its exact structure. But that raises a question. If everyone was silenced, how did details about the tomb's interior survive? The construction lasted nearly 40 years and involved between 700,000 and 800,000 workers. Keeping every secret was nearly impossible. Some workers' families and apprentices likely knew fragments of information, which were later recorded by historians about a century after the first emperor's death. Historical texts also mention that the tomb was equipped with mechanical crossbows designed to automatically fire at anyone who entered, a terrifying defense that kept tomb raiders away for centuries.
Rumors of rivers of mercury flowing inside the tomb spread widely as well, enough to frighten away anyone who even considered approaching it. For thousands of years, no one dared to enter the tomb, whether out of fear, respect, or superstition. So why hasn't the Chinese government excavated the tomb?
In fact, as early as 1974, when the Terracotta army was first unearthed, archaeologists discovered a serious problem. The warriors, once brightly painted in vivid colors, began to fade almost immediately after exposure to air. Within hours, the pigments peeled away, leaving the dull, earthen tones we see today. The same happened with the bronze weapons. Though they were still sharp when uncovered, oxidation quickly set in, and rust spots began to appear.
So far, scientists have not found an effective way to prevent this from happening. Another reason lies beneath the soil. Surveys revealed that the tomb chamber covers nearly 3 acres, and that the surrounding soil contains an enormous amount of mercury, estimated between 80 and 120 metric tons.
Such a massive concentration poses a serious environmental risk. Excavating the chamber without releasing mercury vapor into the air is beyond our current technological capabilities. And then there's a final mystery. Modern detection instruments often malfunction near the tomb's earthen mound. Some scientists speculate that unknown materials buried below might be interfering with their equipment, though no solid evidence supports this yet. For these reasons, China's cultural authorities have officially suspended any plans for active excavation of imperial tombs.
In the end, the massive tomb the first emperor built did what he wanted. It kept everyone far, far away. But it didn't come free. It cost thousands of lives, drained an empire, and carved a reputation that Chinese history has never forgiven. The Qin dynasty, built with unbelievable ambition and even more unbelievable cruelty, lasted only 15 years. So much for immortality. Today, the first emperor's dream of living forever survives only as a story of power, obsession, and a ruler who tried to conquer death and ended up being remembered for everything he couldn't control. So if he could see all of this now, the dynasty gone, the people gone, the legend twisted into a warning, would he still think it was worth it? All right, that's it for today's episode. Until next time.